Yo, what is up, your boy Jay Johnny back here in Perrim's Underworld. Hey, how you doing today, you beautiful people? Today, I would have a little discussion about the curse of chaotic recode. Man, that makes it sound like the chaotic recode itself is cursed or something. That's not what this is supposed to be. More so that chaotic recode is the curse. Now, I love Recode. Everybody else loves Recode. Recode is a great tool for chaotic players. You're not gonna hear me say that it's bad or that I think it's inherently bad. I think it is a great tool for chaotic players. However, with the revival of chaotic just on the horizon, I think it's time that we talk about the negative impact that Recode is going to be having on play patterns in particular. So Man, this is gonna sound like horrible. To be perfectly clear, I love Garb. I love King. I think they're doing a great job with Chaotic Recode. I think Chaotic Recode is an amazing website, and it is perfect for Chaotic. Right? Like I think it has kept Chaotic alive over the last few years. I think it is great. Okay, this is not me saying Chaotic Recode is bad in any way, shape, or form. Okay, this is let me just clarify that before we get further into the video. I just want to make this abundantly clear. I love chaotic recode. Okay. Let's get into like what I'm actually trying to say now, right? So as chaotic survival is on the horizon, and we know that we're going to be getting an app on this in the revival, from what Ganon has said, from what DragonX told us. This is something that we're expecting to happen during the revival, as though we will be getting an app. I think it's very important that we remind ourselves that chaotic recode uses the average of stats and not the overall stat usage, or stat points, or max or min, or in between. It uses the average, so it'll be taking the middle ground of the stats. So why am I bringing this up? It's so moot, right? Like it's like, come on, like you're like yeah, we know this, right? I think it's important to note that chaotic, when it comes back, will still have stat variance. And there's a lot of checks that you probably don't keep in mind whenever you're doing stuff like related to the game. I was talking to King the other day, and I was like, I think it's important to note that, like, chaotic has set modifiers, set multipliers for specific damage amounts with Recode, but the actual game won't have those conditions, and you're going to have to prepare for a lot more different card variants than you are when you're playing Recode. One of my most notable examples is Rage Trod. Is his average is like 70? I think it's around like 70, 65 or something like that. It's just short of being able to meet the condition for Fire Ram. And it was like, so you can't play Fire Ram if you're playing, like, Rage Trod as a fighter, for example, right? Like, that's not. You can't do that. It's something like that. It was like, I want to say it was Rage Trod, and it was a 75 check. I might be wrong on the. Actually, I have a Rage Trod right in front of me. Yeah, I think it's like a min Rage Trod is like 70. I think, I can't remember. Sorry, the Rage Trod I'm looking at is a proxy of the 5 max. I'm never gonna use it, but I love it. Has a bulb on the back. I might take a picture and show it on the screen, but but so my point being here, right? Oh yeah, it would be a 70, because it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. It's like a 70 average. No, I can't remember. Okay, but that's besides the point. The point being, the math is completely different based off the amount of stat points going into a card. For example, a min card might have like 60 or 50 in a specific stat, and a max might have the ability to meet a 75. And it opens up a wider card pool range than what you'd be playing against on Recode. And I think a lot of players are going to not take this into mind whenever it comes to, like, the card game proper, or whenever the actual app drops. And they'll be caught off guard because, like, that card couldn't meet a 75 check. Why is it meeting it now? Like, and it just is going to open up a more confusing pool. I'm not saying that players should go and memorize every single card and every single stat check they could possibly make on every single attack. That's definitely that's way too much, right? But I am saying there's a wider pool of available cards that become not necessarily viable, but a lot more playable whenever you consider their max stats. Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense, right? And so I feel like Recode is going to inherently push you towards the cards you know, whereas other cards, now that they fall into a greater range of cards that can be used with them, will, you know, not necessarily become more viable, but we'll see more play. I it's really weird to word this, right? Because it's like they're not better, right? Like these, like Rage Trod isn't going to automatically replace like Chaor the Fierce or something like that, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. It's not going to replace Takinom. It's not going to replace Lord Von Blood or anything like that. But like it is going to become a more viable option, kinda, sorta. 60E, it's not that much, but yeah, it's fine. Sorry, I'm trying to get my point across, and like I'm looking at a 5 max Rage Trot right now, so I'm like, that's the thing that's on my mind is Rage Trot. Actually, 90% of my life, Rage Trot is on my mind. And I don't think players are taking into consideration the role that stat variants will play when the game comes back. Another thing that Recode does that the actual game most likely won't is a ban list. And our idea of standard right now is a restricted ban list that has like Zamul, that has like Umar loyaled, that has Bodil now recently loyaled, Reckless has now unique, and it's like, and, and it's just, those are things that aren't going to be in play. A lot of players who are re-entering the game now are going to be re-entering with the aspect of these cards all have these limitations on them. But from what we've previously been told, Ganon is not or what is being shared in the community, because at this point I'm not taking anything with a grain of salt. I'm taking everything with a grain of salt that people tell me, right? But Ganon is like adverse to banning cards. He wants people to be able to play the cards they've bought. And we do know that at once Zamul was Lord Von Blood was considered for a ban. Zamul wouldn't be that bad if the sets continued or something like that. And that there could have been an errata for, I think it was LVB that was like rotted, but anyways, my point being, my point here being that there's limitations on the cards now that don't actually exist in the official rule sets, and if you only play Recode, then you're going to be running into those situations where those cards are, faced with those limitations that aren't actually there, or you'll be running into limitations with stat variables that maybe your paper cards can meet, but because of Recode you can't meet those checks. And I guess the point I'm trying to get at is if you fall into just playing on Recode, you're going to run into those issues where whenever you're forced to play against them on the official app, or you're forced to play against them in a paper tournament, you're going to be running into those issues where suddenly you're being caught off guard by a Magmamite that normally wouldn't be able to meet a specific check, but now a card is able to meet that check, or you're going to be hit with a challenge that, you're going to fall short of by 5, and you never would have planned for this because that card, couldn't fall in the range from what you've experienced personally. And I don't think this is necessarily anything wrong with Recode. I don't think they should add in stat variants into Recode. That's just extremely a lot of work, and it's stupid, and they don't get paid for it. They don't get paid for all that work. So, but I do think that it's something players should be taking into consideration if they want to be playing the paper game whenever the game comes back, or if they want to be playing like the app on a more heavily gameplay perspective. I'm not exactly sure what word to use. What I'm trying to say on that one, but if you plan on playing more than just like the typical, because like I plan on playing more than just the typical, right? So I am studying a bit more on card stats and stuff like that, trying to get like a better idea of what ranges specific cards hit at certain variables. If you're trying to keep up with all of that, you're going to have a lot more to learn than if you're just going for average. And I think that that's a trap that a lot of players are going to fall into as they're picking the game back up, is that they're going to just focus on the average. And then whenever it comes to actual gameplay through officially licensed product, I feel like they're going to be running into the issue of this card meets the check by 5, or, I barely lose this challenge on all the typical cards, or they're not going to plan for a Bodil Infinite with Droskin. They're going to be planning for, like, Danian Compost or Underworld Burn. They're going to be caught off guard by the fact that Zamul can be used. They're going to be caught off guard by the fact that, like, you could throw Umar in Mech's Tribe decks. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, I think a lot of players are going to be caught off guard by, that entry into the game proper instead of just Recode. If I'm making myself clear on that, I hope that was understandable. I hope what I'm trying to get across is understandable. That I think the players should be taking into consideration the wider pool of stat variance. We know that stat variance is going to be reduced. Probably instead of having a range of 5 for stats, variances, we're probably going to go down to 3 stat variances or 2 stat variances, and or set amounts of stat variances. So you can only pull if you pull a max of 1 stat, then it has a max in every stat or something like that. That's a conversation for a different time. But I feel like players should definitely be learning or studying up on the different stat variances, and the checks and challenges they can meet with specific, meta-relevant cards. For example, understanding all the challenges you're going to have into Chaor the Fierce with, your specific, favorite deck, something like that, where you're going to be running into Chaor the Fierce. So understanding, the challenges of your, if you're playing challenges and understanding, the specific stat variance and, all the possible ranges, Chaor the Fierce. I don't know the actual wisdom stat. I'm gonna say a number. Don't get mad at me if I'm wrong. Chaor the Fierce, let's say, he has 50 wisdom as a max, right? If you have something with a stat range of 85 on average, and that's the printed card that you have, but it has 100 max. And I mean, understanding, that you're not going to beat a 50 challenge, or something like that. I feel like that's something that a lot of players are going to have to start taking into consideration, especially, again, as the game is Revival is on the horizon. I feel like players should start studying those things, because once the game comes out, once the game comes back, you're going to be running into those challenges a lot more frequently, especially if you're going to be playing through the official app. So, that being said, Recode is awesome. I love Recode. I really do. It's a great platform to practice. It's a great platform to just play chaotic. I mean, you don't have to try and schedule a specific match or anything like that with your friends. You could just jump on standard and just play a game of Recode. It also is a good entry point because a lot of the more complicated things are banned or limited. For example, the Bodal Infinites. You don't have to worry as much about Danian Burn instantly killing you right out the the gate. It's definitely a good entry place. You don't have to worry about Zumble or anything like that. But overall, that's my thoughts on it. What is your guys' thoughts on Recode? Do you guys like Recode? Do you guys like that this is all average? Are you guys also find yourself worrying about not being sure about whether or not you're going to be understand the stat variables that will come into play? Let me know that more in the comment section down below. Check out the link tree down in the description, and there should be a giveaway in the comment section down below to be entered into a giveaway for a worldwide giveaway for a Takinom promo. The stats aren't that great, but it's still a Takinom promo that you get for free. So that being said, I have been J Johnny, and this has been Perrim's Underworld, and I will see you in Chaotic.